Hello, everybody. It is your host, Patricia, and I want to welcome you to the dialogue. So, if I sound excited today, it is because I really am. It has been a long time. I have taken some time off to assess myself, to evaluate my life, circumstances, friendships, people, things, places, whatever you want to name it. And so, I am back with a fresh perspective and a fresh, I want to say word because I'm praying that what I'm talking about on this podcast is going to be encouragement to you, that you will be willing to share it with someone else, that it may encourage them. So, I'm just going to jump right into it. Today, I wanted to name this podcast Job Things. Job Things. And if you're not familiar with the Bible, I don't know about you, but when I first saw it, when I was younger, it said job to me. Okay, it said job. But it is Job. His name is Job. Okay. And so if you haven't read this, I encourage you to go and read it. It's 42 chapters of this man just going through hell. I mean, this man lost his children. He lost his home. He lost his cattle. He lost livestock. His wife turned against him. His friends, while he was going through, turned against him because they didn't understand that this man was in a fight for his soul. Okay, so keep that in mind as I give you this podcast information. This was inspired by a conversation that I had with someone today, and it was very dear because in the midst of the conversation, I almost caught myself starting to cry. I consider myself someone to have gone through many adverse trials, many things that could have killed me, literally. And when I listened to this person, for some reason, I was so touched by their story. And then I ended up sitting there for a little while, told them that I was going to pray for them, and then opened up my Bible to Job, literally. I've been reading that a lot for some reason. That's how God deals with me. When I go to read my Bible, I don't have like a Bible plan or anything like that. I will literally open up my Bible and it literally just speaks to me. It reads me, literally, what's wrong with me, what's going on with me, what I need to change, work on. And oftentimes it will also show me people, things that are rising up, things that I may need to pray for or against, okay? Because how many of you know that you can't always just sit back and allow things to happen in your life? Sometimes you can change the trajectory of your life based on what you're praying to happen, but also what you're praying for not to happen. So, back to the text, Job things. And so I ended up reading Job 39, and that's more or less at the end of Job's long trial, tribulation that he's in, where inevitably the enemy asks God if he can do certain things to Job. And so, God was like, that's my man, that's my homeboy right there. He not going to turn against me no matter what you do. So I call it Job things because in the end, no matter what the enemy did to him, he still didn't deny God. He still did not curse God. He still didn't lose his faith. But I want to tell you something. As a woman that many of you know, I've candidly expressed and shared my story on Facebook, social media, Instagram, about how I was molested as a little girl, and then after that was in multiple physically, emotionally, mentally abusive relationships, even spiritually abusive relationships, where I had to sit down and assess the type of relationships that I have found myself in. And more than often, more than not, it has been with people that have tried to make me turn my back on God. It was not always said openly, but that would have been the end result if I would have submitted to what they wanted. Ultimately, I would not have been in submission to what God wanted. And the enemy can use whatever he wants to. Like I said, Job things. He'll use people, places, things. He'll use situations. He'll use thoughts. He'll use you against yourself to take you out. And so, like I said, I went through many, many years of homelessness, which we call as transiency, where you find yourself just unable to get up. A lot of times homelessness happens to people that lose themselves, lose their self-worth, lose support, mental stability. You could find yourself homeless, and then it's just a cycle of, how do I get out of this? I mean, it's literally like you're like a rat on a wheel. You're trying to figure out, how do I get this solution? Because when you're staying with people, a lot of times people are not going to let you do better than them. Because That's why you're homeless. When you stay with people, they should be willing to give you a hand up. The handout is to give you a hand up, not snatch it from you when you're trying to do better. And so after that, I found myself almost sex trafficked by an aunt. I went to visit her, didn't almost make it back home. Had a baby, saw 15 doctors that were mentally and emotionally abusive, because how many of you know that when you're a black woman with certain type of insurance, when you're single, you're profiled, and they know that they can prey on you and give you any type of medication that they want or they think that you're going to take. That wasn't the case with me. I ran for me and my baby's life. I had the police called on me, showed up at my house. It was bad. But God, let me tell you something. But God, when they say but God, I mean it. But God stopped it. But God didn't let it prevail. I just consider my life to be a life of difficulty. Like, it's just been difficult. It's been adverse. It's been trying. It's been depressing. But for somebody like me, I talk to a lot of people about my story, and sometimes the point does get belabored. I have suffered for a very long time. In my suffering, I cannot deny the fact that in that suffering, God was good. God is good. God has been good. And so I find myself today, I'm reading this text. I talk to somebody else. We have like similarities in our story, not exactly 100% similarities in the story. And I find myself listening to this person and ready to cry. But as I talked and or listened to her, I was able to tie, and that's what I felt like. I felt like God was like, listen. I felt like he was like, listen. And then right when I got to the point where I just wanted to cry, and I told her like, hey, I feel like I want to cry. It was like a surge of perspective hit me. And it was all these moments of my life that I looked over that were so disappointing. And then it was like, boom, bam. What if these were safety nets? What if this was to save you? For instance, I remember when I was 19 years old, 18, 19 years old, graduating from high school at the top of my class, number 4, graduated, wanted to go to Ohio State. Okay, I was working with a man. He was trying to get me scholarships and all those different things. About 9 months later or so, when I decided, I don't even think it was 9 months. I think it was like a year later, because I believe I had moved out of my mom's house at that time. When I went back home, I was looking for a paper. Looked in this drawer and found the paper that showed that my schooling would have been paid for. I could have went to Ohio State. Who don't love Ohio State? But how do I know that the things that I saw in the environment that I grew up in wouldn't attach to me? That, if I went to school, I wouldn't have been focused enough. I would have started doing drugs. I could have got raped. It was so many ifs. But what if God didn't let me see that paper at the time so that I could be saved? Job things to me are the things that we think are so bad, but because we can't see around, through, in it, we don't really understand that it's really not that bad, because we don't see what was coming if we went that direction. See, some of us are so focused on, I can't get my way. I want things this way. I want it to be done this way, that when God does it a different way, it don't make any sense to us in our feeble minds, in our minds. So when it doesn't make sense, what happens is we get mad at God, say he's against me, he's working, against me. But some of us, I even had to admit it today. I know myself, because how I grew up in my childhood, I always had to be very strong-willed. Once I made my mind up, I didn't have nobody motivating me, encouraging me to do certain things. I had to make up in my mind, okay, this is what I'm doing, and I'm doing it, it's getting done. See, now understanding the older that I get, some of those plans that I had and or hatched and or thought were not plans of God. So what happens is he allowed me to go through some suffering, or suffering came or prevented me from doing what I wanted to do. See, all suffering is not bad when you can look back at it and say it was good that I was afflicted because it taught me something. I was listening to Black China today, and she's taking her butt fillers and all those things out, and she was saying, I look at my scars as lessons. And some of us has gotten scarred up, jacked up, just obliterated through life. Because like I said, when I was in my 20s, I didn't know how to seek God and ask him, Lord, what is your will? And I didn't even know how to get in his will. So sometimes the suffering is so certain wills don't come into my life. Because do you notice when you're suffering, a lot of people are not around you? A lot of people don't support you. A lot of people don't talk to you. And could it be that the suffering is not so you can be so around people so much, but so you can get in the face of God and see what direction he's telling you to go? That's one thing I know for sure. When you're suffering, when you're poor, when you don't have anything, you know, it is a limited amount of people. Even though the Bible said that we're meant to bear each other's burdens, there are a lot of people that are burdened down, so they can't bear another person's burden with them. You see in the text that Job's friend told him everything that he was doing wrong, and he wasn't doing anything wrong. If you read at the beginning, it clearly tells you that this was done to Job because he was a righteous man. The enemy wanted to turn him against God. And so for some of us, we don't know the treasure that has been in us since we were children. And what happens is we come to a place where we're just suffering, just going through. Want to connect with people? Can't. Want to start businesses? Can't. Want to move out of state? Can't. So many can'ts, okay? Why is it like that? Could the can't be saving your life? That friendship that you can't get right, could it be saving your life? That state that you want to go to so bad, that'll turn you against God? Okay, the can'ts that you can't do, could it be because it's putting a can so you can have salvation? So you can be saved and protected? What can'ts have you endured so that you can? Because at the time it seems like you're suffering. At the time it seems like things are so bad. And trust me, sometimes they really are. This last thing that I just went through, it was possibly, I'm going to say for me, the worst things that I could think of, because what I was going through was so dear to my heart. Anybody that knows me knows that certain things are really dear to my heart. One of them that I will share with you is parenting. Parenting is very important to me. Not so much as parenting down from my parental figures, but me parenting my daughter is very important to me. So when things or people or whatever come up against that, I'm like a lion. I'm going to tear your head off because I know what it feels like not to be parented right. That's me. Maybe that's one of my Job things. Nevertheless, we find ourselves in this text with Job when he is just suffering. And then at the end, God tells him and his friends, you all didn't have the right perspective of me. Because a lot of times when suffering comes, people want to blame God. They want to be upset at God. They want to have an attitude with God. And I can't say that I didn't have an attitude with him when I was going through certain things recently. It was that bad that I really almost lost my faith. I was that irritated on days. I mean, I felt like I could just break something. Some days I did throw things. Some days I did yell, I did scream because it was that painful. And I don't understand all of it, but one thing I will tell you that it didn't strip my faith. Some friends got stripped. Some jobs got stripped. Some opportunities got stripped, in the sense of it stripped me so they wouldn't come in the way of what is really needed in this season of my life. Sometimes there are things that don't happen because there are priorities that are more important than what you want or could happen. We as people have to start to understand, and this is the whole point of this message, or whatever you want to call it, that God was in control of Job's life. And because he was, when Satan asked for him, God did it. God allowed Satan to do certain things, but it didn't turn Job's heart against God. Amen. That's what my daughter she just sounded like she agreed. Okay. So what happens is, when you go through adversity, when you lose loved ones, when you lose friends, when you lose jobs, when you lose cars, money, clothes, anything that you lose is going to be for gain, because you'll gain your soul, your right mind. There are things that certainly can't be stripped from you, but there are things that come in the way to try to strip them from you. God is a preserver. Now, he'll let you lose things to preserve you. If he knows those things are going to come in the midst of your relation. Now, if you try and hold on to it, okay, you might feel lost for a season. But God does everything with the plan in mind. And so that's all I wanted to say. I hope you guys are encouraged. I hope you guys are praying. I hope you guys are seeking the Lord. And I hope you guys are rested. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and let you go because my daughter sounds like she irritated, and I understand because we sit in the car while I do this, and that's okay. But you guys go ahead and have a good Friday and a good weekend. I'll see you later.